Good evening, all. Hopefully, you can hear me all right. I'm just going to check my mic levels. Yep, we seem to be good. Good evening. Welcome to Sunday. Welcome to a somewhat inflammatory, um, yeah, title for a stream, but one that I think, if you bear with me, will bear out. So yeah, good evening to Shadow Girl, to Ray, Jadomo, Chris, to Nova 42, Mad World, evening shippers. El Neto. I hope I've got that right, buddy. I don't think that's a name I've said before, but good evening. To AV, to Feathers, and to anyone else who's lurking. Welcome, welcome. Yeah. So we are obviously mid content drought from Cloud Imperium Games, unsurprisingly. So we are waiting for June, I think 23rd, when they'll come back and decide to actually give us some content, which will be nice. Blaze88, good evening, bud. So yeah, I think it's probably worth getting into a little bit of stuff in just a moment. But first, you know, I just want to start out by saying a little bit about where I am. I am optimistic when it comes to Star Citizen to a point. And people will probably notice that my last live streams over the last few months have been taking a bit of a turn away from the positive, more towards the negative. I make no apologies for this. I've always said from the moment I started content creating, I am going to be a realist when it comes to a lot of this stuff. I'm not in the habit of dressing anything up, of trying to sugarcoat anything, unless I genuinely believe that that's the way that things are going. So we'll chat about a little bit in terms of the goals. But what I want to do first is I want to just hark back to a video that they released. It was the very, very last video they released of 2023. And at the end, the last couple of minutes, where Jared, he called it the 2024 cast. Bless him. And he talked about a couple of things, including a release date for server, or a targeted release date for server meshing and Pyro. Before we get into that, this stream is not sponsored by Stoford. It's one of my favourite drinks at the minute. So, to everyone who's joined us, cheers, one of the happiest noises in the world. Thank you very much for joining me. Cheers to you. YouTube's now going to throw a fit because I've drank on stream. So what? So let's have a very quick look at what Jared has to say.
Alpha 322 comes with more than just vehicles. There's structural salvage, openable cargo containers, new derelict settlements, new hairs for players, new maps for Arena Commander, and more. But since this is our last episode of the year, we have a tradition here at ISC of looking back at everything that's happened the last 12 months and reliving some of our favorite moments. And, well, look, 2023 was good. Great even if you gloss over that little rough patch in the middle there. But heading into the new year, all that I can really think about is everything that's on the horizon that's about to make 2024 the biggest and baddest year of our project yet. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to indulge myself, maybe switch out my CIG cap and put my backer hat on, and tell you what has me excited about this next year for the Persistent Universe in a segment that I'm calling Disco Lando's Star Citizen 2020 Forecast. Now, without talking specific dates, let's discuss what's being targeted.
Okay, so before Jared gets into that mess, it's probably just worth using this as kind of a yardstick to see what they promised versus what they've delivered thus far. Bearing in mind that a lot of what he's talking about here is the first half of 2024. So we can go through and do a checklist and see what he has and hasn't achieved.
And currently on track for release in just the first half of 2024, starting with Master Modes, the new way to pilot and operate ships we've been discussing since CitizenCon 2952. Now, whether that's every ship or a staggered rollout of groups of vehicles depends on how work progresses, but it's a major change to the way spaceships operate in the Persistent Universe.
Master
Modes,
you can
be sure
check.
that we'll update on it more when the time comes. And of course, when your ships aren't in flight,
Abe
they
gets
can be
this.
stored in the newly persistent hangars that are arriving with freight elevators, freight kiosks, and the new
Not to
cargo
the point,
transaction system that we've shared on both ISC and this year's CitizenCon. Now, all combined, they form the next major evolution of cargo careers and will also have far-reaching, broader implications for the entire Star Citizen experience. And then outside of vehicles and hangars, there's also a variety of FPS combat improvements coming to the first half of 2024.
Yep.
With improvements to
That's
reloading,
it.
the weapon wear and misfire system, scopes and
Misfire
dynamic
stuff, there we go.
crosshairs and charge and drain,
If
and
they have
even
own
more
experience
we'll
with.
be able to show you once we
Dynamic
return in the new
cross-up?
year.
Check.
And then outside of strictly FPS combat, there are new player character features coming, like the updates to the EVA system, the visor and lens
Yes
system,
and no, push-pull,
loot
not yet.
screens, default
Yes.
item interactions and the personal
Yes.
interaction system, and there's
Not quite.
even new shopping and
I
mission
mean, yes,
apps in
that's it.
development
It's just
now.
not the punch in the butt.
And while we're talking about apps, the first half of 2024 is also currently scheduled to see the arrival of our new character customizer with things
Yep.
like tattoos, piercings, scars, and yes, Virginia, it's true, beards. And as for how many and of what kind, only
Happy
Andre
badges.
knows for sure, but you can bet we're gonna ask him sometime around March. And then, of course, if you're in-game, there's also a little thing called Mobiglass and an awfully big thing called Star Map. They're
In,
both getting
thank
their
God.
big updates in the first half of next year. And have I mentioned those enormous distribution centers that'll be the
Crazy
new
in.
microcosm homes for every gameplay and mission feature that exists in Star Citizen, as well as the 4, 5, 6, let's just say several new and updated vehicles that are making their way to the persistent universe in just the first 6 months of 2024? I did, just now. Now you can check those off.
How many vehicles did he say?
6, let's just say several
5
new
or
and
6.
updated vehicles
Okay.
that are making their way to the persistent universe in just the first 6
And
months
they're
of
there, right?
2024.
Depending on your
I did,
definition.
just now. Now you can check those off.
Pulse LX, Medevac,
Okay, so,
the
real
3X
talk.
ones,
CIG hat
Saber
back on.
Firebird.
Now, you're probably looking at your screen and saying to yourself, what about Pyro and 4.0? Well, don't fret. The things that we just covered
What about Pyro and 4.0?
are those that aren't too dependent on continuing foundational tech work like server meshing. So we feel pretty confident in targeting everything that we just shared for the first 6 months. But when it comes to something as enormous as the complete Pyro system in Alpha 4.0, well, that's where the new preview channel comes into play. Now that said, Alpha 4.0 is currently targeting a summer 2024 release, but that won't mean that you have to wait until then to play.
Okay. So 6 months ago, it'll be here in the summer. Now, this is where we start to have fun. What does summer mean? Why am I all the way over here? Camera, put me back over. Oh, God. It's like, yeah, thanks. Put me in the middle, damn it. But here's the fun thing. So what does summer actually mean? Well, I think certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, you can start to argue June, July, August. So we've got these 3 months. The problem is, I think, is to say it's in summer. We all know that that things tend to come out at the end. So, you know, as we found out, patch for the end of Q1, which should be March, came out in May, and so on and so forth. So maybe it was a little bit optimistic to hope for it to be the Q2 patch, but it is the second patch of the year, as we can see on the roadmap. Now, so hello to Pilgrim, to Khan, to everyone who's come in, to Citizen Ninja, everyone that's come in towards the end. So they were talking about preview. They also said, I think, at the end of CitizenCon, because they had the opportunity to try Pyro at CitizenCon, and they also did a couple of weeks afterwards where most, if not all of us, got the chance to try Pyro if we wanted to. Good evening, socially. Good to see you, bud. You know, they were going to say that before 4.0 was released, we were going to get the chance to see parts of it, just like we did then in the preview channel, and obviously that has not really materialized for anyone. I know I haven't gone to Pyro yet, mainly because I want my first experience of Pyro to be something that we share together. And you know, so I haven't set foot in that system at all. I haven't done anything there over and above what We've seen it at CitizenCon and so on and so forth. But they've said summer, so June, July, and August. And the reason for me that this is a bit of an interesting one is that there's some information in the PU monthly report that came out this month that makes me think that maybe 4.0 is a little bit further away than they would like to admit at this point. Okay. So yeah. Summer in Stanton. Pilgrim, I wouldn't mind betting, buddy. Wiggy One, hello, mate. Good to see you. Yeah. So this is effectively an I was wrong stream, right? Because I said multiple times, certainly at the beginning of the year, straight after CitizenCon, beginning of this year, all that sort of stuff. I've said multiple times that I was hoping that they would hit an end of Q2, beginning of Q3 release for Pyro. And the reason that I've said that is not so much based on any of their pace or that sort of stuff. What I really wanted, especially seeing as the fact that I'm going to CitizenCon this year, what I really wanted was a CitizenCon where Pyro's out and it's not dominated by information about Pyro. It's information about what comes next. Because I don't know about you guys, the thought that information may not now and be until next year's CitizenCon depresses me somewhat. That's not to say that even if Pyro's not out, that the next CitizenCon will be dominated by information. I would imagine not, right? Because when they started at the beginning of the year, they were expecting, from what they've just said, to have Pyro out. So hopefully the plans for CitizenCon remain to talk about what comes after Pyro, regardless of whether or not Pyro is actually in the game at that point. I don't know, but I'm just really hoping that it doesn't become another Pyro when CitizenCon, especially considering the fact of just how much of Pyro we saw at the first half of this, good lord, decade. So yeah, just having a read of a couple of things in chat. Monster Avy says, personally think that Pyro is getting pushed back due to the hangar and elevator situation. This is the persistent hangars and the freight and cargo elevators. They had basic meshing jumping between Stanton and Pyro already working. Yeah, so that there is that. Yes, 4.0 at SitCon if we're lucky, or IAE, says Citizen Ninja. Socially, as we've said, thinking October. Yeah, that's it. Really itching for info on Nyx myself, says Wiggy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you are still surprised that we have to wait forever, are you new? No. No, and I'm not surprised that we have to wait forever. I think wishing that something's out so that you get information on something new isn't the same as being surprised that we have to wait for something. But there you go. At this rate, we will get 1.0 before 4.0, says Socially. Yeah, very possibly. Longest road to 4.0. That. I like the timing on that, Teapot. Nice. They've said we're on the road to Pyro. They never mentioned that they're to replace the engine and the transmission first. Yeah, 100%. And I'm not gonna labour on the PU report too. Well, I mean, it's a lie. But there's a couple of bits within the PU report that I wanted to talk about, kind of before we get there, right? And it basically, I'm gonna go find the right section and then switch you over so you can see precisely what it is I'm looking at, and that I'm not just making stuff up. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so the key bit in all of this wall of text for me regarding Pyro and 4.0 is this bit. Okay, it's in the mission design section. You can see this on Comlink now. This isn't hidden. It's this paragraph here. I'm just going to highlight the first word so you can actually read it. Okay, planning was also done for the mission system refactor, which is required for server meshing. Okay, so planning has been done for it. which is required for server meshing. Now, as we all know, server meshing is required for 4.0 to actually happen. It's going to be the means by which they connect Stanton and Pyro together. So there's that sort of stuff, right? The next bit that worries me is this line here. Under online technology, they say this. Additionally, they began working on potential Alpha 4.0 release features, such as the mission system refactor, the same system we've just talked about, the marker system refactor, and the player trade feature in support of server meshing. Okay. Judging, if you put those two statements together, the marker system refactor and the player trade seem to be potential features. We know that the mission system refactor is a required feature. Not only did it say it up above that, but it also says it here. Within core tech, mission system refactor is already on the 4.0 card because they know that it has to work for both of those things. So I don't know about you guys, but the idea of beginning to, they began work on it doesn't fill me with confidence. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that we don't know, for example, how long that work is going to take, what size of chunk, how many people they've got working on it, the man hours involved, all that sort of stuff, right? So it's maybe not as bad as all that. But it certainly seems to think, or so it certainly leads me to think, that they are further behind than maybe they were intending to be. There's also other fragments of information in there, work to support 4.0, and a lot of the language around that is continued or began to work, continued to work to support 4.0. And it's not the same language as they use in other places where they say, coming up to final, finishing, closing out, all those terms they like to use to indicate something that's coming to an end, hopefully. So yeah, a bit of a pain in the ass. But yeah, we're on the side of the road to Pyro. Yeah, absolutely. We are on the hard shoulder, waiting for mechanic assistance. Hey Zaveth, hey Badgers, thinking a limited 4.0 by CitizenCon, much like we received a limited 323. There's possibly, just having a look through, what is there in this that we could lose? The player customization, I don't see that going anywhere. The locations are likely there. The jump points are likely there. I think that the problem is from what we've seen here, from what they've just said, right? This is back-end stuff. This isn't, unfortunately, this isn't a content issue. And as people will say time and time again, that the people who create the mission content and the ships and the locations are not the same ones who work on the back-end networking tech, the people that are developing server meshing, the people that are doing all the entity control and all that sort of stuff. They are not the same people. So there's not necessarily a competition here between the contents of the gameplay, the ships and vehicles, the weapons and items, the locations. There's not a competition here between that and the core tech because it's not the same thing, right? So the key here, when you look at 4.0, is the only thing here that I would suggest that might not make it is the transit system refactor. But then again, the phrasing of that for server meshing compatibility, which makes it sound like the current transit system is not compatible with server meshing. So, because in Pyro, I don't know. I don't think there was much of a transit system, if at all, which makes it sound like it's on the Stanton end, which we haven't yet tested. Why that needs to be compatible with server meshing, I don't know. I'm not a networking guru, but that's certainly how that reads. And the problem here is the only other two things in the core tech are the mission system refactor and server meshing. And as we've just seen in the big report, mission system refactor is required for server meshing. So without the system refactor, server meshing can't go in. The only other way around that might work is they ditch server meshing. But that means they ditch everything else because Pyro isn't there. And by ditch, I mean it's not that it's not ready, it's just that we can't access it because the means of us accessing it, server meshing, is not up to scratch yet. It's you know, I think a lot of the comments will be something like, why is it that we are surprised once again by a delay? And I think there's a genuine answer to that, which goes beyond naive or being new, as Alneto said. I think the key thing here is Squadron 42 feature complete. They said that they were going to move staff across to to Star Citizen, to the PU, and things were going to happen faster. And they have, right? Almost everything that they've added in 323 has been delivered on, with the exception of, is it 3 cards? So there's a dynamic event that hasn't gone in, personal instance hangars, cargo hauling, and freight elevators, item banks, right? Which are now committed anyway, so they're definitely coming with a point patch. So, yeah, everyone's saying when I did the video a while back and said, this is going to be a huge patch and blah 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 blah. The only patch that seems to come close is 3.3, right? When you look at how many features are in there, you've got 3, 8, 20, 31, 34, 42 entries, right? Nothing else in there comes anywhere close to that. Right? Until you get to 323, which is 25, 29, 30, 35. So they've definitely ramped up. I mean, look at the previous couple of patches. You're talking 12, 13 lines on the roadmap. And okay, the number of lines, again, aren't the be-all and end-all because they don't indicate how much work is being done on that feature. And I get that. But at the same time, there was a reason to say we could be optimistic about that release date. There's also a reason to say that we could be optimistic about, them hitting 4.0, and it's because they've moved all this staff across, right? And people will say you can't take them at their word. All right, but if they say something's delayed, people take them at their word. So you can only take them at their word when they're saying something negative. You can't say them at the word because everything else in there are comments on my video about this when I said 323 is going to be an incredible patch. Lots of people said there's no way they're going to deliver it all. Well, they are delivering it all. It's late, granted, but it's been delivered. So it's a bit about it's a bit of kind of half 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, right? It doesn't really feel at the moment like the promised pace is being achieved because the patch was so late. Yes, we included a lot, but if I said that was 2 patches worth of content, now that's far less impressive, right? But it was released in the middle of May and released incomplete with 4 features missing. Q3 here, I guess that answers the summer question. Maybe this is going to end up being a 2-patch year with one of the Q3 point patches being IAE. It's kind of hard to predict at this point. But it is, I feel, and going back to what I said right at the beginning of the stream, it's disappointing. And you know, I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm going to look to the comments now because I'm really interested in what you guys think. I mean, just I've popped a poll up. You know, do you think it's slipped? And 78% have said yes. And I have to kind of temper what I've said with they did say targeted. They have said nothing is promised. They have said they will try to aim for these things. Maybe what this is maybe this is a more personal thing. Maybe I'm just getting a little bit hacked off with waiting. You know, it's very hard not to weigh in as a content creator on what is going on in the Star Citizen verse and what's going on at CIG headquarters and all that sort of niff naff trivia and George. But you know, you very quickly get a label as being salty if you say, yeah, it's going to be delayed, yeah, it's going to be delayed, yeah, it's going to be delayed all the time. You become a bit of a troll, or you know, someone that you try to be positive, right? I want most of my content to be positive about stuff. It's really hard when stuff like this keeps happening. But I'm gonna have a read through some of the comments. So let's see what's being said. Odds are, says Wiggy, that missions probably won't really work well in 4.0. Not that missions are working well currently, but still, yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I think they're between a rock and a hard place with 4.0 and missions and anything that's relying on the back end right now to work as intended, right? Things like your EVA and stuff that's not necessarily relying on the back end more than any other feature that runs on a multiplayer game. Stuff like server meshing, obviously, that is entirely the back end. It's particularly hard in this instance because if you know server meshing is just around, or you're trying to put server meshing just around the corner, why, oh why, oh why would you divert people working from server meshing to fix bugs in a system that you know is about to be replaced by server meshing? So they've just kind of got to swallow it at the moment on that front. But yeah, there's that. We lost unique item recovery, says Feathers, and they removed that card completely. They did, and that was somewhat distressing, right? We'll get it at some point, but it will be nice to have it sooner rather than later. Meshing will go in on time, even if it's horribly broken. Then they'll release Pyro missions, etc., in order of priority, and they might be broken too. So I'm expecting horribly broken for release. Yeah, like I said this with 318, right? I said if people think 318 is only going to happen once, I really don't think they've got a grasp on exactly where the project is right now and what is going on with something called Agile, which is the project management they're using, which is using the idea of iterative sprints. You might have heard them use that terminology in some of their videos before. And sprints are just that. Project management, where you know how to, like building a house, right? The project management, you know how to put the foundations in, you know how to build the walls, you know how to put the roof on, you know how to cable everything up, you know how to plumb everything in, the windows going in fine, you know how to finish things, get the plaster in, get the carpenter in, put in all the kitchen fitters and all that sort of stuff. You know all of these things, you know roughly how long they're going to take, so you can give a fairly accurate timescale as to what's going to happen with that house. What you then do, is if one of those things slip, because you know how it all works, you can tell how much the project's going to slip by, right? So yeah. Whereas this is not that. This is iterative. They know what they want to achieve. They just don't know how they're going to get there yet. So this is slightly different. But yeah, I think people need to understand that in the future, things like this, if server meshing goes in broken, right? One silly little thing in the back end that doesn't work could bring that server down. And because that server's connected and communicating with another one, it could bring the other server down. So you kill both servers. And then all of a sudden you can't retrieve character info because as far as the game's concerned, you are still logged in a game. So you can't log in again. This is likely going to happen again, I think, and people just need to be braced for it and be patient. Server meshing is going to be rough. Duncan Simpson says very much the same thing. Sadly, it got pushed apparently because of knock-on impacts to the back end. Yep, absolutely. Shadow Squad Gaming, good evening, bud. It's better not to listen at all to the dates they give when something will arrive. Yeah, I think certainly not taking those dates as promises. 100%, right? And remembering, and this is the thing, is that on the one hand, we have a lot of conversations about how they need to communicate with us more and they need to tell us more about what's going on. And what we saw with the roadmap was that blatantly doesn't happen. When they had the roadmap going out more than one patch ahead, what we were seeing was like more of what's actually going on behind the scenes. Yeah, we'll try and put that in. Like, oh no, wait, that doesn't work, so we have to take that out. We can't achieve that because that's not going to get fixed till that date, which is in a year or so. So it's not going to take it out again. And people were seeing anything that went into the release map view as a promise. And there's some. It's 6 and 1/2 a dozen of the other, as I said before. On the one hand, if you are being told that this is what they're aiming to do, there is no promise. Everything is subject to slippage. Not only that, but there is a long history of lots of things slipping. To take things as a promise is naive. At the same time, you have to wonder, and I made this point a couple of months ago, so apologies for people who heard this before, but when they talked about persistent hangers, no one was expecting persistent hangers with 323. They then said, a couple of weeks after they'd announced it all, that, oh, it's just gone through its final review. But why did you tell anyone that it was even coming before it passed its final review? And the reason I say that is because it wasn't like 323 was feature light. It wasn't like they were lacking for content. They had so many features in that. No one was like, oh, we need more features in this. It was fine as it was. Everyone was hyped about Star Map. Everyone was apprehensive about what Master Modes were doing. Everyone was looking forward to the ships that were coming with it and all that sort of stuff. Stopped, right? So, yeah. Absolutely. You know, he seriously said that we need to be patient in a game that's been developed for 12 years. Yeah. Because it's not like any other game, right? This isn't, let's take the Call of Duty that's just been announced or whatever it is, COD, Modern Warfare, I don't care, frankly. But it's just been announced, right? That is not going to do anything majorly different to what the other ones have done. There might be another game mode. There might be some sort of Tarkov-esque extraction mode to it, maybe. Don't know. But, a little bit of scenery destruction, but it's not going to be massively different to what the COD franchise was before. So what you do is you take a proven model, you add to it, right? And look at most games, that's what they are, right? Even newer games like, all right, it's not the greatest example because its release was balked, but you look at Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk wasn't anything new and different from CG Projekt Red because they'd done The Witcher and The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 3. Different setting, sure, but the whole idea of really interesting stories and variable approaches and different outcomes, they've been doing that forever. All they did was put a different skin on it and give you guns instead of swords, right? And they give you swords too, which was cool. This has, I'm going to keep banging on about this. This has never been done before. We've never had ships that we can crew like this. We've never had huge planets like this. We've never had the aim of server meshing like this. This wasn't a let's take Eve or Elite and build on them. Let's take Freelancer or Starlancer or, X-Wing or any of those games and build on them. This was something completely new. And they don't know how they're going to get there. And that's fine. There are plenty of different projects around the planet in different theaters. Things like, research and development projects are very much run on Agile. So yeah. And the harsh reality of Star Citizen's development is, if you wanted it to be faster, we should never have gotten a game to play. If we hadn't gotten a game to play, Star Citizen wouldn't have had anywhere near the amount of money that it has at the moment. It wouldn't have had the scope. It might even have failed because people would have been like, whatever. Because they wouldn't have had 4 times yearly meetings and all that release noise and then worry about bug fixing because key things are broken. It's in a very weird stage now between a very balked game in very early development. Well earlier than people even see. For most games, you can't even get pictures of the game in this stage of development, let alone get to play it. I can show you a very early picture. I think there's one kicking around. Let's switch to chat very quickly. There is one kicking around for Sea of Thieves. Which is utterly crazy. It looks awful, right? This is a really, really horrible version. I don't like to use rock, paper, shotgun too much, but we'll use it anyway. Here you go. Rock, paper, shotgun. Have a chat with Merchant Scroll Seller. That's what that game used to look like, and even that was in a more playable state at that stage with more features in it because it had no features on launch. Let's face it, Sea of Thieves is a bit of a bag of ass, and I like Sea of Thieves. But that's early because they don't need high fidelity models at that stage because that's not what they're testing. They're testing, does everything work? Does the vendor say yes when you click on it? Does it give you the option? If you click to buy something, does it give you something to buy? So that shop only needs one item to prove that concept. Because if you can get one item to sell, you can get multiple items to sell, right? And it's that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to go back up. Sorry, because it was a bit of a monologue and there. Blaze88. Do you know what? And El Neto, you are both correct in what you say. I don't want to be negative, says El Neto, but slipping the CRG style, you are correct, sir. 100%. Blaze88, I'm sick of trusting CRG and then feeling foolish for doing so. Yeah, 100%. And, I've got to sit here and eat a sizable poop sandwich. Sorry, screw you, YouTube. I've got to sit here and eat a sizable shit sandwich because I said that maybe things would be different in front of almost, back then, 2,500 subscribers. And now I've got to sit here and go, yeah, that's not happening. And, people called it. So, that. Avey says, I'd say it's more that CRG seems to hype themselves as much as they hype us. And then something goes wrong in reality. They get really excited about what they're going to release. And they go, tell everyone that. And then it's that. It was always like that. I will never say that they get things done on time, says Shadow Squad. And again, Shadow, 100%. They don't. Even this patch, in which they have delivered everything that they've promised, or they will once the next point patch hits, the next point patch is over a quarter late. So yeah. Avey says, to me, their goals or targets are essentially best case scenario. Realistic is whatever they say, plus or minus, plus about, 20% of the window. Yeah. Wiggy says, I don't care too much about the delays. I mean, this is Star Citizen we're talking about. I do care about design decisions, though, like sorting out the flight models, the way inventory works, and motor crew. Yeah, and there's some interesting points on that I'll come to when we look at the rest of what they said in the monthly report, because there's just a couple of things that are probably worth picking out. It is a wall of text, and if you don't like reading it, well, I've done the hard work for you, so we'll have a look. Jadamo says, I think they've tried to put a lot of features into the year, and they know the more targets they miss, the harder it becomes to keep up the client base expectations. Yeah, there's that. 100%. I think as slippage happens, then more things slip. Especially at the moment, we're going through a period of the game's development where it is very much there are lots of things being put into the game that a lot of other things rely on, like resource network, like the mission, the friend system that they're working with. They're dealing with a lot more, so getting friends and parties and invites and all that stuff works a lot smoother than the absolute bag of spanners that it is right now. There's a lot, obviously server meshing, obviously the replication layer, all of those things as well. There's lots of stuff that is going to snowball. Yeah. So sorry, I am well up in the comments. I am catching you up though. I've just gone past Shadow Girl's kind of hands emoji. If you wonder where I am in the comments, that's where I am right now. Shadow, we talked about the game in development for 12 years and being patient. Shadow Girl says, it's like an MMO game. Think of a game like Star Wars The Old Republic or Star Trek Online. Those games barely had enough content to begin and continue to develop and add more over time to this day. Yeah, and the problem is a lot of the times when you get compared with a lot of MMOs, you look at how much content they've had. Like, try and compare, honestly, any MMO with the likes of, say, Warcraft, that's had, 8 expansions now? I don't know. Someone will tell me in chat. All the other things that they've added, all the free updates, the blah 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 that they've done, the reworks, all that sort of stuff, right? It's impossible to compete with all the content that's been added, so it's going to feel light when it first comes in. Yeah. COD Yawn says feathers, 100%. Star Trek's DS9 was literally completely empty inside and featureless, and that was a full release game with box, collector's edition, etc. Black Mage says, add scenery destruction isn't anything new in the FPS space. Anyway, I remember when Bad Company 2 had destructible terrain, and that was like 15 years ago. Also, Bad Company 2, what a game that was. I spent a lot of hours in that game. It was good fun. Space Engineers does it all, says El Neto. No, it doesn't. So yeah. Yeah. So, the server meshing that's being brought in at the moment, that hasn't been done. Looking at the CitizenCon one, the idea that you can be on 2 completely separate servers right next to each other, see each other in real time, interact with each other in real time, that does not happen. Not in the way that this is doing it. And we know that because they're having to develop it, otherwise they would have just got this off the shelf. So that's that. Oh man, this game will be an inheritance for my son, says Shadow Squad. Yeah, absolutely. As long as they don't get way of Steam. Did anyone see this with Steam a little while back? Steam has said that you can't inherit accounts. So when a Steam user passes on, there's no way, unless they've specifically left the details for you to log in, you cannot approach Steam and say, I've inherited everything on my parents' account. Give me my account, please. They'll say no. You got to go and buy it all again. So make sure, that you pass on your account details, and then hopefully they don't do age checks on accounts either. This is why you should never tell Steam your age. But yeah, I think part of the problem is CIG is always focused on making a pretty game, so the game looks far more developed than it really is. There's absolutely something to be said for that. And where I really have a problem with the way CIG do things is I keep seeing Star Citizen advertised on YouTube talking about massive multiplayer space battles and all the rest of it, and it's just, that's not where this game is right now. They need to stop doing that. They are doing more harm than good. It's not a good place to be. But yeah. Xenopotamus, hello bud, good to see you. Or Xenopotamus. I really hope Pyro makes out in time for SitCon 2954 this year, considering we already played the demo at the last show, even if they have to release it without jump gates. and run it separate from Stanton. That was something we talked about probably about a year back now, on the run up to the last CitizenCon, was that they could probably do Pyro as a standalone, so you chose which one to log into, and your characters were completely separate from each other. I don't know how easy that is to do, but it's definitely a possibility, right? Black Mage says, I do like what Star Citizen have been doing, the product that has been released. What we have is insanely cool, but they could have cut a few corners, especially when we can't see behind the curtain for ease of development. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful game. It's one of the only games, and Cyberpunk would be another one, where every so often I just catch a glimpse of something and have to stop and appreciate just how damn pretty what I'm looking at is, and that's really cool. That's a really nice place to be with it all. Yeah. CIG has had a bad habit in the project planning management of being very optimistic and then a surprise Pikachu face when things don't work. Yeah, I mean this is 100% the agile project management, which works in sprints. So agile project management does not work in terms of completion dates. It says, okay, we now have enough resource from other areas to work on the next part of it. So we're going to work on the next part of it, and then when we can't go any further because now we're waiting on other areas, we'll move that manpower or person power, have I got to call that now, across to something else, and they'll work on that and then come back when there's more progress that can be made. So yeah, that's agile project management. That's where it is. That's absolutely what this game is following, because agile project management, if you just Google it, right, talks about the idea that it's iterative. When you know what you want to achieve, but you don't know how to get there, agile is a very good form of project management for just that. Yeah, Steve Hughes, absolutely, Teapot. Xenopotamus, I will always say that it won't arrive on time. In reality, nothing ever arrives when they say it will, and they deserve that, right? And until they start delivering on time consistently, they will need to understand that that's going to be people's take on it, and I think that they'll just need to suck that up. Zava says, I think 4.0 will be pushed out no matter what. So pushed out to live, that is, or PTU. CitizenCon with a 3x game would be demoralizing. 4 is a financial mandate superseding the technical mandate. Yeah, I don't know where the financial versus technical bit is coming in, but yeah, I mean, there's certainly there are targets they want to hit, and I think the problem is I don't know how many more CitizenCons they can do, promising Pyro soon TM. Maybe that's what they need to do. YouTube ads you're seeing are not from CIG. They're from players who are using them to boost their referrals. You can tell because the ad advertises 5,000 starting credits. Yeah, so the one that I've seen is because it takes you straight to CIG, and there is no code in the referral box. So yeah, unfortunately. And even for the ones that are being advertised, and I don't know if I've seen them or any of them yet. Even for the ones that are being advertised, they are Star Citizen's projects. Star Citizen is absolutely able to run a cease and desist on that individual through YouTube. So even if they are not doing it themselves, they are complicit in it. So yeah. So we all agree about Pyro slip, says Alnetto. You guys think server meshing also slip? Well, I mean, Pyro and server meshing are the one and the same. We can't have one without the other, unless they run the separate servers, which they've said they won't do. So yet, so yeah, it's going to be that, I think. So yeah, Hellwinter says Agile is very different than waterfall planning. Not familiar with the last one, but I'll have a look. Shadow Squad, I'll be surprised if 4.0 works stably. Yes, I think we all will be surprised if 4.0 works in a stable manner, just because it's not a stable piece of kit. The game has never been stable. And I've got to go back to this. I'm sorry for those that are here regularly, but we've got a couple of new faces, and I think it's worth thinking it's worth reiterating. Right, they are going to break things repeatedly because there are things that they're bringing in that are going to break. When armor comes in, it's going to break stuff. When server meshing comes in, by God, is it going to break stuff. When the economy gets brought in and Quanta starts, that's going to break stuff, right? Broken stuff at this stage is absolutely just, this is what's going to happen, right? Um, there's really not any there's not any debate, and this is why seeing people clamoring for things like bug fixing is never a comfortable space to be in. Yes, certain bugs need to be quashed in order for us to play it, because that's the whole point of the PU, according to Star Citizen and CIG, is to be able to test the game and be able to give them feedback and give them data to work on. However, all the core gameplay loops aren't in yet. So persistent hangers, persistent habs, most of the core gameplay loops, exploration, data running, hacking, science, you know, insert random, you know, even bounty hunting, all that sort of stuff is not in yet. All of that stuff is going to break and upset other areas of the game to a greater or lesser degree. So to expect things to gradually get better, yes, they should gradually get better because the game is going to get closer to 1.0. But there is also going to be, you know, times where we take a massive step back and we get another 318 and we can't log in and we can't access our characters and it takes them a quarter to fix it. All I will say, and we've had this conversation in the Discord a few times, I've just realised that the Discord link is not in the description. So whilst we're chatting, I will create an invite link for Discord and I'll pop it in the chat. If you want to come in and have a chat, please do. Just keep it respectful. Once you're in, just say hello in the welcome channel so I know to give you the role that you need to be able to see all of the channels. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see a lot. But you know, we were talking about this in the Discord a little while back. Someone help me out. What was I talking about? It was the jump to Discord. It's completely thrown me. Oh crap. Oh god, my brain's just died. I'm sorry. I just clearly I don't have enough for that. I was listing off all the gameplay loops that were going to come in and break stuff. But yeah, anyway, fine, whatever. Michael DiCenzo, I hope I haven't butchered that, buddy. Sorry if I have, but welcome. Good to see you. Thank you very much for joining the stream. But yeah, take another swig. It sells. Control Alt. Yeah, I literally that was a ding 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 ding. It was like, oh crap. Yeah. So there's whole wax of the game. Sorry, that's where I was going with that. So we've had a couple of discussions within the Discord, which basically say, you know, I'm going to try and put myself at the center of the screen again. There we go. There we go. That sometimes it will knock you off. And for those that have been in Discord, and I'm quite happy admitting this, right now I'm not enjoying it. I was hoping that 323 was going to come in and fix stuff, but I found the ship combat changes just painful. I'm really not getting to grips with master modes. I've tried on occasion. That's not been great. Don't like it. Is where I'm rapidly coming to in its current form. It's not helped by the fact they've done a bunch of weapons changes. It's not helped by the fact that the AI has been changed around. It's not helped the fact they've massively upped time to kill. I don't understand how they've managed to change all of those things at precisely the same time and then expect to know what change has caused what kind of reaction within the community, because it's really hard to tell at the minute. You know, are we struggling to kill stuff because there's a problem with master modes? Are we struggling to kill stuff because there's a problem with hit reg? You know, I poured so much fire into a prospector, and I understand there's problems with a prospector, but this was post 323. It was supposed to be fixed. I poured so much fire into it, and it just laughed and kept coming. A prospector, a single person mining ship, took everything a Saber Firebird could throw at it, and just kept going. Whilst I had a Mantis from the Advocacy or the UEE trying to help me out as well, which is quite funny. Yeah, pants. The beer will help you remember to sit in a ninja. Absolutely, that's that. I feel the same about 323. I'm scared about the things I'll touch next. Yeah, 100%. And I think to add the other half of that Discord conversation is when you feel like that, please, for the love of God, go play something else. Especially if you've got a lot invested in this game. The reason being is that if all you've got is a starter package, you're on a free fly. If you decide I can't fucking play this game, I hate it, I don't want to play it anymore, you uninstall it and you never play the game again. You haven't lost a lot, especially when you've got hangars that are full of ships that you have bought or have had bought for you or whatever. You've got a lot of value in your hangar. Please, please, please be careful forcing yourself to play a game because you will become more and more negative about it. Not just in terms of not enjoying it, you'll read into things negatively, and before you know it, you won't be able to interpret anything they say in a positive light, and that is not a good place to be. So, if you're not enjoying it, go play something else. I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077 for the first time. I poured almost 150 hours into that game. It's glorious. Audio shouldn't be so quiet, dude. I'm almost peaking on my mic level here, Nova. Hopefully, I haven't got any background music. So, how's someone give me a? You sure you're not got your volume on YouTube? I know it's a stupid thing to say, but there's that. Tears Eric, good to see you, bud. But yeah, hopefully that's that. I like the game, says Jay Grizz. I don't like the people making it. Yeah, absolutely. Chris looks at Hanger. Oh shit. Yeah, 100%. I'm there. Shadow Skull Gaming says, I agree. I don't like the flight model either. I actually don't feel like playing until they fix things or come up with something better. I don't understand why some people like this flight model. Yeah, I think it's horses for courses, but I think what you're talking about, Shadow, is what a lot of us are seeing is I can't see anything redeeming about it other than yes, they've slowed the combat down, which is great. There's nothing worse than whizzing past your opponents at a closing speed of almost 2,000 meters a second and seeing nothing. I get what they're saying about them making those fights more cinematic, right? It's why we like films like Top Gun, where everyone's fighting up close, as opposed to shooting missiles at a dot 8 miles away and never seeing your opponent up close. There's definitely that cinematic aspect of it. But other than that, I can't see a lot to recommend it. And as time goes on and people get more to grips with it and understand what you can and can't do, I think like the jinking Hornet thing that's happening at the moment, oh my god, it's not good. Single track, dude, good to see you, mate. I'm glad you managed to catch us live. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Come in, pull up a pew and grab yourself a drink, and we shall enjoy. Yeah. It was fine for me before, but now I have you max to have you at speaking volume. Okay, if I just, how about that? Is that any better? The problem is I don't want to max out too much. So maybe that's. Let's try somewhere in the middle. Let's do that. Hopefully that works now. So yeah, check Steam. 353 hours in Cyberpunk, says Mad Teapot. How many playthroughs is that, man? Because I'm on one playthrough. I'm a completionist, so I've done all the Cyber Psycho stuff. I've done all the NCPD scanner stuff. I've done all of the side quests. All of the fixer missions are done. Literally, the only missions I've got is the person I've romanced wants to meet me in my apartment, and then I've got basically go meet Hanako at Embers, and I'm finishing one of the DLC quest finishes. Crazy. Good. Nova, good. I'm glad that fixed it, mate. That's good news. But yes, going back to the original point, I think that's the problem, right? So going back up in terms of making sure that you play the game when you enjoy it, and when you don't, you find something else to do. Please, for the love of God, come play Helldivers with us if you're in a country that can. Problem with master modes, the things that are broken because they forgot to update the EMPs and others. Nav mode deflector shields aren't present, and only shields we have are electric combat shields. There are so many problems with the speed, with the shields, with the time it takes to change over. There's rough. It's rough. It's really rough. Wise Word says tier 0. I've taken breaks of 2 years or more. Don't want to get burnt out before I've even flown all of my ships. Yeah, 100%. You were saying, says Avathor, the cool gameplay loops aren't in. Yeah, hacking, science, bounty hunting, these will affect the game and should get better as we approach 1.0. There are times we regress, however. Yeah, thank you, Zavath. That's exactly what I was saying. And when those times do regress, like now with master modes, what I recommend is, if you're playing it, and you know the difference, right? We know the difference between I just can't get to grips with this and I don't like this. I'm getting to grips with it and I'm liking it less and less. That is absolutely the time to say, do you know what, I'm going to stop for a while. So yeah. Just going through. Xenopossimus says, I've adjusted to the new master mode's flight model. I think landing mode needs to be sped up a bit, though, just a tad. Yeah, and I think someone earlier, I forget who it was, someone made a comment about separating out the flight model. It might have been you, Shadow Squad. Yeah. Separate the flight model, have a classic one for space and one that works like jets in the atmosphere. Absolutely. Atmospheric flight. And we know that this is coming. They demoed this at CitizenCon. The idea of stall speeds and going nose down and having enough flow over the control surfaces to make a difference. That will be coming, and that's where the real difference between things like the Hercules and other, because the Hercules is in a bit of a tough spot at the minute. But when they handle much better in atmosphere. It also begs the question, are some ships going to need a running landing or something similar? Not so much to make sure they land, otherwise they crash, but they might become incredibly tough to land in VTOL mode. Things like the Caterpillar, stuff with all of the aerodynamics of a post office, But yeah, good. You're not clipping audio even with the louder setting. Good, I'm glad. That's progress. Most of my time on Cyberpunk was with a pirated copy before I bought it. Naughty. But yeah. Balancing is wacky though, says Innopotamus. Used to solo ERTs in a Murder Hornet, and now my F7A struggles in lower bounty hunter missions. Yeah, I think there's definitely they definitely needed to put fighters, I mean this in the nicest possible way, the fighters in their place. If you are soloing ships like the Idris and the Hammerhead in a fighter, the game is clearly broken. But yeah, I mean, F7As against other ships, against, larger kind of cargoes and freelancers and stuff like that, they should be pretty scary contenders. But yeah, I'm still on my no cyberware run. It's taking a while, so socially nice. Yeah, so lots to talk about master modes. When that comes with a 600i, fly like a brick or a rock, or the aerodynamics of a post office. I'll just go back to that one, mate. Mad Teapot says, I used to be big into BattleTech, over 700 hours in MechWarrior Online way back, and 750 in the turn-based game. I've never played them, although I think Mech 5 was on a deal not so long ago, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hopefully my trusted Cutlass will just do time in VTOL mode and Atmo. Yeah, I think it'll be alright. It might not be particularly maneuverable, but the fact that the thruster's angled down, I think it'll be fine for landing and stuff. Yeah. Hellwinter says, could see some ships good with VTOL and others requiring more of a typical flight model. Yeah, 100%. And I think that transition as well needs to be carefully managed. I keep going back, because it's a very good flight model, to the Armour 3, the Ospreys. When you take off in an Osprey, it's the one with the rotors, and then the rotors angle down. You don't just go dink because it'll drop out of the sky, because it doesn't have enough forward momentum. They actually angle in increments. and enable it to start getting enough forward momentum. And you've got to do that high enough that she doesn't lose too much altitude when she does. So yeah, it's a bit of balance. Avi says, I just know they seem to want to slow combat down more while supposedly still wanting to cut the time to kill. Hopefully the time to kill turns some more for fighters because the large ships need help. 100%. I think when we're talking about time to kill for the larger ships, one of the things that's worth bearing in mind is looking at resource network gameplay and engineering. They're trying to make the time to kill sufficient enough that you can make meaningful changes in engineering and try to repair stuff before you are destroyed completely. And I think that's kind of very important on that front, because otherwise there's just no point in implementing those systems. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, Fighter versus Scepter with the way Master Modes work, says Michael, won't shine until Armor 2.0. Yep, 100%. Yeah. Lots of talk about people's hours and stuff. Absolutely. Oh, God. I can't wait to try my waxy, slippery 600i, says Wiggy. That's somewhat worrying. Yeah, CIG keeps saying time to kill when they should be talking time to disable. 100% that. Adds value to having crews, says Hellwinter. 100%. And ships like, this is going to be the difference between ships like the Hammerhead and the Perseus versus ships like the Polaris and the Idris, is that the Hammerhead and the Perseus can go to full manned. They can have someone in every turret. They can have a couple guys up front. They can have an engineer running around. Same with the Perseus. They can have every turret manned and someone running the torpedoes and someone running the big guns. But that's everyone in every seat occupied. Whereas the Polaris, the Idris, carry a few more than that, so they can go for much longer extended operations. So you can switch out crews while maintaining the same readiness, right? In the real world, people can go for food, people can go for a WAS, people can do all that sort of stuff, and still continue to fight the Polaris. Whereas Perseus, if your turret gunner needs to take a leak or go have food or go answer a phone call or whatever, they're going to find it a hard time to do so. So yeah. Shadow Squad Gamer says, what one sees in the atmosphere when falling is in slow motion and everything does that at different speeds if gravity is different for each thing. Yeah, there's, again, the atmospheric model, when that comes in, hopefully that will start giving a little bit more kind of, that'll give us a reason to choose between the Mustang, for example, and the Aurora. Aurora, great in space, who cares? It's a flying rectangle. Mustang, with its wings and control surfaces, is going to handle better in atmosphere, you would think. But that's going to take a lot of tweaking and tampering and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. My hours have been 0 since 3:20, says Michael, because I know all the other stuff is... sorry, I can't quite read that. Yeah. Backlog, just waiting for updates, but it's getting there. That's it. And, people are free to enjoy the game or not enjoy the game as they will. It's just, some people just seem to think that because they've invested so much, or maybe because they want it to be great, when they hit these times when they're not enjoying it, they just keep smashing it out, and it's not doing them any good, like, at all. Okay, so we've gone through comments. I managed to catch you guys up. Please keep feeding your thoughts in as we talk, and I will give you I will respond to you when I get a chance. But whilst we're doing that, I just wanted to have a very quick look at the rest of the squadron report, just because there's a couple bits in there that I think it's probably worth mentioning. So let's have a look. Let's get us all the way back up to the top. So this is the May report There's just a couple of bits in here that, as I was reading through, I just made a couple of notes and wanted to kind of pick up on. And if you've seen anything that I've missed, please feel free to pop it in the comments, and we'll chat about that as well. Notorious, good to see you, buddy. Welcome in. I think they play or are invested based on the promise. There seems to be a thing here where people think the promise is going to happen sooner if they keep playing. Yeah, 100%. You know, maybe that, you know, or they'll just get used to all the bugs so it doesn't affect them anymore, maybe. But a couple of bits in here. One of them is that in the art characters section, they mention that they are bringing in a heavy specialist armor that's now in development. Okay, which is this bit here. A new heavy specialist armor began development too, and that's when they're talking about 2 other specialist armors. So for those that aren't aware, these aren't just the different temperature sets of armor. These are armors based on different types of roles. So there may be a, you know, an EVA specialist armor with an EVA suit on it. It might be something that's to do with mining or salvage or combat or medicing or any of those things. Art ships. Interestingly, the Zeus Mark II, the ES version, which is due to come with 4.0, has passed Lot 0. They talk about they've made a lot of improvements in that, and 3 other ships have also entered the white box stage. I would imagine, just going off guesses, that these ships are something like the Mirai Heavy Fighter looking thing that we were shown at CitizenCon. There's the other ship that no one seems to know the identity of, that too, likely in development, and maybe something secret and special for IE. Interestingly, the core gameplay bit is absolutely huge, as you can see me scrolling through in the background. Like, huge, right? So they are now increasing the amount of work that they're doing, as we can see, because these sections never used to be this big, like, ever. Okay? But a couple of things in here. So they're talking about the new multi-tool. Multi-tools will now use batteries. There will also be a primary and secondary mode for multi-tools, so it will be bound to one button or the other. In terms of repairing, one of the things that they're going to be able to do is charge or drain components. So adding some power to a component might make your shields recharge quicker. The drain mode, as well as all the sabotage and, you know, trolling reasons, the interesting thing with the drain is that they talk about draining being able to remove distortion damage from components. So if distortion is affecting your shield, you'll be able to go to your shield generator, drain the power off of it, and your shield generator will now work normally again. I thought that was worth noting. Okay, inventory system 2 they're talking about is going to need a rework for server meshing so that it can quote unquote scale properly. That's something else that's going to need to work. And if you want to know where that is, it's this bit here. Work required to adapt the inventory system to server meshing was scoped out, as it will require a rework of its back end to scale appropriately. So scoped out, not started, they've just determined what it is they need to do. Again, something else that goes to the title of the video, which is, are things slipping? Because they seem to be just starting a lot of this work. Okay, the transit factor is in refactor is in active development, which you can see on the roadmap. And they're also developing a team for something called objects of interest. And this is what it says. Work was done on the objects of interest mechanic, which will allow designers to set up objects within the PU or Squadron 42 with various parameters and a special scan highlight. A special material was also applied when an object is occluded, so that it shows one material when in line of sight and another when obstructed. This is being able to see things through walls and that sort of stuff, right? Cyberpunk, it's the ability to be able to see bad guys through walls. You're not actually seeing them, you're seeing like a red wire mesh outline. So yeah, and the freight manager, which is this thing here, is looking fairly cool. Okay, so this is the freight manager terminal. Looks like it's going to be on the freight elevator kiosk thing. Okay, and you can see there that on the left, this is what is on your elevator. You're able to split here. You're able to do all that sort of stuff. And then you can move stuff from the elevator into the warehouse. You can see the bottom there, or the button there, just above my head. This way, up there. There you go. And then the move the other way, this one here. So yeah, and then you can bring that up and load. And that looks fairly well developed and fairly far along. Interestingly, liquid carrying containers were worked on. Everything's now in final. So what carrying liquid means for us right now is not exactly known, but they're obviously bringing this in as some sort of precursor. There are also going to be destroyable generators for search and destroy missions. Okay, so now getting into not just killing people, but also to getting in and working on some or destroying some objects within the game. Long overdue, frankly. Limited Respawns, good evening, bud. Good to see you. I'm just going to pop in some of the comments before I lose you all, because I don't want to get too far down. But yeah. Tier 0 says it's difficult to balance crewed ships. They need to be more powerful, but most people that play MMOs play most of the time solo. So if they nerf everything for single players, they'll lose player base. Yeah. I think the thing there is that most of the encounters will likely be in single player ships. And this is where, so, when you do encounter the larger ships will have larger signal or signature, so you should be able to avoid them, as opposed to just run into them blindly and then complain that you got schwacked by a bigger ship. Nova was this year, so I guess Northern. So yeah, June, July, August is what we kind of settled on. SC experience is unique and fun, says Xenopotamus, especially with augmates, but without progression due to the alpha state and constant wipes, many don't want to play yet. And I would agree with that wholeheartedly. One of the things that I've really struggled to do with the game recently is I've struggled to want to play knowing that the wipe was coming up for 323, so I just kind of left it and went, yeah, I'm not going to bother. Yeah. As there isn't character value stats, the building around armor types like medium and heavy is more the core part, but helmets with different HUD identifiers, well, specialized armor 2.0. Yeah, there's lots of things I think they're going to add. Maybe the vision modules that we've been asking for will become a module in the helmet, and your armor will have, to an extent, components, just like anything else. Things like, for example, maybe when you put a beacon down because you'll get downed, maybe you can have beacons that are encoded beacons that anyone can pick up, but only your augmates working on a particular encryption can actually decrypt. And that's where data running comes in, because you can then try and hack the information, find out who it is, where they are, and all that sort of stuff, right? It means that data running is more than just cargo that is data. You actually have some sort of access to it. And of course, they wouldn't do that in as so far as like allowing people to hack voice comms and stuff, because that's a massive invasion of privacy. But things like that in game, being able to hack someone's map to get the waypoints that are on it and that sort of stuff, those things would absolutely make data running a really unique gameplay mechanic that kind of doesn't exist anywhere else to that degree. So yeah. Shadow Squad Gaming says, I wonder how long it would take for them to implement building on planets. I'm sure they haven't even thought about it for just one person, and not a group or clan yet. No, and this is where I think they were talking somewhere in here about adding, I'll have a look as we go through. I don't think I made a note on it, but adding more back-end services so that they can, the whole group thing will work better. They're going to change, they're going to refresh how sharing works of missions, so that's more smooth, less buggy, all those sorts of things. So you don't have to wait for it to be on the screen. You'd be able to like pick it up at all the time and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, hopefully that will come along with it. Along with things like ship sharing and all that sort of stuff that will be necessary for an org. Being able to designate one of your ships as an org ship, so anyone within your org can draw it out, not just you. But obviously, you designate that. It's not every ship that you own. You say, allow my org to share this ship. That would be useful. Yeah, I have to start training my kids for crew positions soon. Wiggy, all for that. Do it. A little bit worried you haven't started. Makimus, good to see you, bud. Thank you for joining the stream. Progression is a difficult thing to achieve in an MMO, especially a space one. We as humans have problems with progression in real life. Deep, man. Yeah. Yeah. How they're going to show progression in this, hopefully not through ships, seeing as people have been able to buy as many ships as they want. Hopefully there will be, I know the reputation system's in there, and I'm hoping that will look just as good a little later on, if not better, than any progression system that we've seen thus far. It's going to need to be core to make it rewarding to play the game. Yeah. My 8-year-old daughter wants to help, but she also told me that she wants me to buy her a Hello Kitty Dragonfly. Well, then you buy her a Hello Kitty Dragonfly, goddammit. Blaze says, until I have multiple ships in my hangar at once, personal hangars are just glorified private ASOP terminals. Yeah, so I don't know how it's going to work. There's obviously space in there with cargo and stuff. Maybe you can put land ships in that particular area, especially small ones. But yeah, it's not going to be like your personal garage showroom, I don't think. Although, because of their instance, there's no reason they couldn't do that. I just don't think it's what they're intending. They need waypoints and bookmarks that should come with more social tools for sure. Yeah, we talked about this a little while back, and one of the things that I advocated for on Spectrum, don't go on Spectrum, it rots your brain, was the idea that we shouldn't have, when they showed the star map in CitizenCon, they demoed some, in effect, they demoed waypoints. For different locations. So a planet would have a coordinate system. Sorry, not waypoints, coordinates. So you have a coordinate system. So in other words, if I'm on the surface of Hearthstone, I could say to you over Discord through a text, whatever, outside of the game, I could say, here are the coords. That information is now taken outside of the game, right? What they could have done, and what they could still do, and I think this is a really nice idea, is they don't give us coords, because at the moment they don't do anything, right? You can't even put a location in by coords yet. So it's not like it's taking functionality. You just see the coords. It's irrelevant. They can make, because they said that you go to an area, you download information from a map terminal, they could make a lot of the locations like Ghost Hollow and all that sort of stuff. Unless you get it for a mission and you download it, you can make a lot of the other ones like the Crash Javelin out on Daymar, like Benny Henge. You can take the coordinates away, and then what you do is you make that data in the game to be passed around. So when I get a waypoint, I'm out in my Odyssey, I'm 5 systems away from anyone in the org, I'm trying to find an ore vein, I find one, incredibly rich ore vein, gonna make us billions, right? I now need to get that information back to my org, rather than me jumping on Discord and going, hi guys, I'm on this planet, da 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 da, which removes all of the gameplay from the game, right? If I hide the coordinate system that you can't use, so you now can't see that waypoint, other than I can see it and I can share it with everyone in my crew, but to share it with my org and their central servers back wherever, I've got 2 options. I can transmit it, that might be intercepted, or I could send a data running ship to get it back and, carry it encrypted and, transmit it once it's safer and it's not spending so much time on the radio waves. That way, data running becomes an actual functional thing, because you can intercept this stuff and decrypt it, and all you get as a hacker with information is you get a waypoint. So you go there, you scout it out, you find out what they found out, you sell that information to the highest bidder as a rival org, and all of a sudden, data has a purpose, right? You might be able to tag it to things. So they've said to us, when you find a Bengal in game, it's either going to be a wreck that you'll need to repair, or it's going to be a crashed thing that you'll need to repair. So attach it to that. So when you actually find one, but you've got no power to do anything about it, you can create a data crystal with this, or a USB or a memory stick or whatever it's called, with this information on it, and you save it and you can flog it. And the in-game trading system says this is the position of a Bengal. So you, as your solo player, don't want to be in an org, can still benefit from finding it by selling it for ridiculous amounts of money to a large org. And then maybe you double cross them. Maybe you have a copy. Right? There's loads of fun things. But people seem to not be able to get past the idea of, oh, you can't take information off me as coordinates. You don't need them. Unless what you're trying to do is circumvent the game system. So yeah, that was one of the ideas with it. When will they have? When will they have an, or how long will they take? I guess you're saying, Shadow, to an economy worth playing. Server meshing, until they know how server meshing works, Quanta won't work. Because Quanta needs to know how to read information off the servers. If you don't know how the network works, you can't program systems to use it. So Quanta, this is why we've heard, I would imagine, nothing from Quanta for a very, very long time, because server meshing has to work fast. And then Quanta will start doing what they've said it will. Short answer, a long time yet, mate. I still own my Drake Herald for eventual data running such unique shit. Yeah, absolutely, Zeno. I really hope that later on it becomes important. More than just, here's your cargo, and instead of a box, it's a crypto key or whatever. I hope that you actually have information that you can use. That would be really, really cool. So yeah. CIG did talk in the past about rep being our progression, says Can. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I would love to be able to drop a waypoint or bookmarks as Xenopolis to get back to a location that I liked where I left an item. 100%. I absolutely don't think people should lose that ability. All I'm saying is when you do that on the star map, it gives you coordinates for that planet. So in theory, you should be able to map that to the planet, and if you know the coordinates, you know where it is on that planet, right? What I'm saying is you can still create it, but you don't see any coordinates. So you see it and you save it and you can share it with people within, I don't know, 50,000 kilometers, right? And then maybe some of those components that we were talking about in the armor, maybe they're encryption modules. So it's harder to break. You need to be a better data runner, better hacker to get at that information, right? Maybe as a data runner, you just sell a lot of traffic. Maybe that a PMC org, private military contractor org, says, rather than you giving us information that we know that this org is operating in that system. So we want you to go in there, record everything that you hear, and just give us the unhacked stuff, and our own hackers will deal with it. That'll be really cool, right? Because you as a data runner, you've got no affiliation to that org. No one knows what you're there doing. You're just flying around and doing your thing. There's so much they could do with data running that takes it past just another cargo commodity. And I really hope, CIG, please, that you seize on that opportunity. Yeah. I suspect my daughter is going to be expensive in the future. Yes, mate, but that has nothing to do with Star Citizen. That's, yeah, exactly that, Can. Yeah, 100%. This is why we earn the money, not for ourselves, but for the women in our lives, right? If that's the way you go, I guess it could be for the man in your life too. I'm easy either way. But yeah, data running won't be important until high-low data files for missions, reports, and drone survey reports, etc. 100% that. In-game person sharing of the location spot without coords, yeah. So you can literally just go, almost like phones, right? You can just go share this with this person. You just do a very quick connection. You could even do a physical connection to stop it being intercepted. But there would absolutely be a really nice kind of that sort of. Can I be a man in your life, says Black Mage? I could use some ships. We got to talk about ships later. Remind me. But I'm flattered, and I know you just want the ships, but you know, No. There's only one woman for me, and she knows who she is. So yeah, data running is like the spy intelligence, secure file transportations, where most cars. I know you are, mate. I know you are. You're all good. Sorry, I'm trying to make it as awkward as possible for you. Just like, why yes, Black Mage. Yes, you can. I understand if you don't ever want to come back again. I get it, but I promise not to do that again if you do. So we're all good. But yeah, yeah, exactly that, Michael. There's so much stuff they could do with data running. It is genuinely, I think, potentially one of the most interesting things they can do on games. The only thing I don't think that they're going to be able to do is give you access to other people's comms. So e-warfare, there's absolutely no reason if you're chatting with a friend in the game and you're on an Idris and you're talking to a patrol that they can't jam comms. So they introduce like an interference effect, right? Because that's not anyone listening to what you're saying. But I don't know about you guys. I talk about, all sorts of things with friends when I'm playing games. Not all of it is about the game, and not all of it is something I would be comfortable people who don't know me hearing. So that's why, and I know I'm not the only person in that position, right? Whether it's slightly tongue-in-cheek jokes that out of context could get you in a lot of trouble, or whether it's something that's going on in my personal life or someone else's personal life. I don't want to sit in a game feeling like you can't talk about stuff on the off chance that some neckbeard is sat there listening to your game, right? So yeah, hacking is different from data running because it's stolen intelligence. Yeah, opening doors, shutting of fuel nozzles, etc. Yeah, you got 3 points. You've got hacking, you've got data running, and you've got electronic warfare. Electronic warfare is things like jamming, spoofing. So jamming is stopping people hearing anything or seeing anything on the radar. Spoofing is making something appear there where it isn't. You've got also, and jamming can take voice comms, radar, weapon systems. You can jam and just put so much noise down a bearing that they can't discern what is actually going on. So yeah, there's all those sorts of things. Hacking is taking something that's supposed to be encrypted and breaking through the encryption to understand what's in it. Data running doesn't necessarily mean that. Data running is you have some information. Whether you understand it or not, you are moving that information around securely or you're intercepting it from other people. At no point as a data runner do you need to understand the information that you have, other than what it is, what it's being sold for, or if you've got it. Obviously, if you're getting information and then going through the information that you have to figure out what's worth selling, that's data running and hacking combined. And I imagine ships like the Herald and the other data running ships will be able to do stuff like that, like the MSR and stuff. Again, really exciting. I wonder what CRG makes in-game comms more attractive than things like Discord. So, Nova, I've got an idea on this. Okay, so let's say with your computers, right, the onboard computers, they're going to be able to do a number of things. One of the things is how many blades can you take for turrets and stuff. One of the things is going to be how fast can you process information and all that other things. One of those could be the number of comms channels that you have. Okay. When you come onto a ship, you default join the general comms channel, which, unless you muck around with it, is the top one. Everyone joins, everyone can speak, just like you can do now, right? Everyone chats, is the same thing, everyone sits on that same voice channel, right? So, bringing in a new comm system, for most of us, nothing changes. If you, however, want to run your ship with different comms, like let's say you're on the Polaris, right? Polaris, you're going to need a lot of comms. You're going to need the bridge crew to be able to talk to each other, right? Then the captain needs to talk to fucking everyone on a general channel, okay? So almost like an announcement or tannoy system, right? You need to be able to talk to the hangar. You need to be able to talk to your fighter or whatever ship's disembarking. You need to be able to talk to your turrets. You need to be able to talk to the torpedo crew. You need to be able to talk to engineering, right? Doing all that in one channel is not going to happen. So what you could have is the computer could have X number of comms channels, and all they are is just tabs or like little bars. And the top one, you can name them whatever you want. So you can rename them. So the general channel is welcome to my ship mofos. You have joined channel, welcome to my ship mofos. And then very simply, you've got roles that you can assign people. So when you're on the ship and you're the comms officer, you can go, okay, well, Shadow Girl's the captain of this Polaris, and Dell is the engineer, Badges is the exo, and Edison is the pilot, and Khan is the torpedo man, and all that sort of stuff. And then what you can do is just order them, right? So you've got channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Channel 1, captain telling everyone, right? What happens when you speak on this channel? Everyone else shuts up, only the captain can use it. Everyone else gets muted, only the captain can use it. Great, okay. Then you've got talking to the turrets, then you've got talking to engineering, then you've got talking to the hangar and the flight crew, and then you've got talking to the ship, and then you've got, at the bottom, you've got the general voice channel. And what's beautiful is, if you're all talking in the general voice channel, which is number 6, it's the bottom priority, everyone's talking to each other, it's fine, no one's got priority speaker like you have in Discord, everyone's just chatting. But, if someone on a higher priority, so 1 through 5 talks, it automatically mutes what's going on in the other channels, and the people with the engineering role, when you speak in engineering, guys, can you just go and have a look at the port side generator? I've got a bit of a fluctuation. Can you go and just check it for me? All the engineers hear that. Everyone in the general channel didn't hear anything because they don't have the engineering tag. Right? And then you go up and up and up through that. And wherever you drag it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the lower the number, the higher the priority. It would be a very simple way to do that. And what it enables you to do is, of course, you can still be on Discord. But what Discord absolutely can't do is it can't manage 6 simultaneous conversations in the same channel, because everyone hears everyone all of the time. Right? So what you do is you do that. Now, the beauty of that system is, if you're sat there going, that's really complicated, I don't want to use that, that's great. Because you don't touch the communicators console. And all that happens is when you join a ship, everyone's talking on the same channel. Just like they are now. Great. In fact, you don't even need to use it. You can use Discord or Guilded or TeamSpeak or Ventrilo or whatever, right? Just do your stuff. But if you are on a big multi-crew ship and you do want to set it up, someone can set that up, and that's great because now your communicator actually has a role. That's your internal comms, that's one tab. Your other tab is your external comms, and that's hailing other ships and established comms and encrypting channels and all that sort of stuff. You could have loads of fun with that. And Khan's exactly right with what he says, right? Yeah, exactly that, Nova, is as long as your player, while you're on the ship, gets the right tags. So as communicator, you go, okay, these people are in the engineer, so give them the engineer tag in the engineering console. Click, 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 click. Great, they're all engineers now. These people are in the turrets. Give them the turret role. Click, click. It might even be, for turrets, if you sit in the seat, you automatically get the turret role. Don't know. But that's how they make in-game comms more useful than third-party stuff. The second part of that is they might need to run that in tandem with a company that makes bespoke voice comms, and that it runs external. But Khan's exactly right. When I played Arma 3 Milsim, I would play with 80 or 90 other players. We would have air support, armor, artillery. We'd have multiple what they call deltas, like platoons. We'd have 3 of them, each with 3 squads in. Everyone would be able to talk to each other. The squad leaders would be able to talk to each other. The delta leaders would be able to talk to each other. They'd be able to talk to command. We'd have forward air controllers who were able to talk to the aircraft. We'd have armor controllers who were able to talk to the armor. All on the same systems. And you carried comms with channels in them, frequencies. So you'd have a piece of paper written down, either in the thing, you could write it on like a Word document not a Word document, you'd type it into the program, so you could pull out a piece of paper and go, okay, that's the frequency. Or you'd sit there with a pad of paper at home going, okay, this is it, and you change frequencies to talk to different people. So yeah, this is how stuff works in those games. So yeah. Honestly, I think CIG is going to have to go hard to prevent just using external, and that's it, right? I think that's the thing. Okay. Jam, okay, but what flavour? Strawberry, raspberry, apricot. I don't know. Chili jam. That's my favourite jam. It's a savoury jam, but it's nice. The best jamming ship will be called the Bob Marley. Zaveth, I see what you've done there, and I'm here for it. Yeah. So, On Discord, you can only be on one channel at a time, right? Yeah, exactly that. In Eve, we used Mumble for that in Fleets. It was a bit more complicated, but it worked well. That kind of system would be good. Something like, it doesn't have to be that sort of system, but I think something that default works for just the person who rocks up, knows nothing about comms, knows nothing about how the game works, and it just works for them. And then what you do, for the people who do want to use that system, it should be a case of an extra layer, rather than you having to get in and set it up regardless, because it's shit otherwise. But yeah, and TeamSpeak is an old system. But yeah, TS 5.6 with Overwolf. Michael, it's been a while since I've used TS. I haven't played with the Milsim group in a while, but that's cool. Thing is, it has to be better than the alternatives. It means it needs to have a powerful set of features and flexible. And that's why I said that maybe it works like a plug-in system. So you have, like Discord, you have something open. So this is how it works with Armour. You have TeamSpeak. You download a set of plugins, just like mods. They update themselves, or they come up when you open the software. It tells you if they need updating. You update them. You have them running, and then on the server end, whoever set it up for you will say that in these channels these mods are active. And when you go in there, what's incredible is if you're in there and you've got the mods running and you're in the game, what's incredible is you'll hear nothing, and all of a sudden you'll go click onto the right frequency. You can hear everything. They're also very cool because they're range based. So if you've got something massive in the way, or if you're a long way away, you start to hear the signal become weak or fading. You hear the interference. It's really, really cool. If you don't have the mods loaded and you go into that channel, you just hear everyone. And I really want to go and do this with Armour. I want to go and go into my old Milsim channel, and I just want to record 5-10 seconds of what it sounds like in one of their ops during a high intensity period in comms, and just show you what it's like for large numbers of players to try and communicate with each other. Because it's carnage. You couldn't hear anything, and that's what it would be like using Discord, right? So yeah. Other things, I'll just stay on this because you don't need to read it out, right? But other things they're talking about within the PU monthly report. There's an EVA only FPS map, so all the fighting all the time will be in Arena Commander coming soon. The Freight Manager we've already seen, that's looking good. There's a new cave archetype being worked on, we would imagine for Pyro, or maybe even beyond, but that's looking cool. They're working on abandoned mission mechanics specifically for cargo. So let's say you're doing cargo hauling, right? This isn't you've gone somewhere, you've bought a load of cargo yourself. These are going to be the new hauling missions, where you go to a location and they go, hi, we've got 60 SCU of this. You need to take it to Microtech from where we are at ArcCorp, right? You get partway there and you go, do you know what? I just want to go, but I don't want to hurt my rep. What you're going to be able to do now is go to cancel it, and it will give you the option to disembark that cargo that you're bringing, what you're hauling, at a closer location to you. And if you do that, you take much less of a reputation hit than if you just logged out and got rid of it. Okay, so I'm just going to go and read the wording for this. Where's mission design? Where are you? Okay, so here's it goes. Throughout May, Mission Design continued working on cargo missions, specifically polishing the abandon flow. Okay, it's this section up here that we're reading. This is used when a player decides they no longer want to play the mission. For example, if they've already picked up a load, the contract will give them an allotted time to deliver it to a closer location and take less of a reputation hit. If the player doesn't want to deliver the cargo, it will be marked as stolen, which is kind of cool, right? That's a nice it's a nice way of doing things, I think. Yeah. They're also talking about what's really cool, okay, is they're talking about as part of 1.0 development, 1.0 being talked about again, further work was done on the location stories for the major landing zones. with team members working on design to tailor the story to the gameplay. Surely it should be the other way around. Fine. These missions will provide exciting opportunities for players to embark on adventures that embellish local storylines. The team also continued to support upcoming patches by providing narrative content for some of the upcoming mission modules, providing additional in-fiction names and description to items, and working with the core gameplay teams on future mechanics. Okay, so a lot of this is going to be things like repair, recharge, all that sort of stuff that's coming to. So things like replacing components, containing radiation, power management, using your charge and drain tools on your multi-tool. So that's kind of cool. We'll first see those come to the repair missions come to Pyro, so they won't be instant. So yeah, that idea of like you could effectively do a 0 to hero run, and you could like log in somewhere and not have a ship, and you could earn enough money to buy a ship and all that sort of stuff. That stuff's looking pretty cool, and they're now actively working on this. Yeah, and what I'm hoping is to see some of what they've also added to other games. And again, I'm sorry, I'm gonna reference Cyberpunk again, but there are loads of little things that kick around that you just stumble on. Not like, oh, if you want any gameplay content, you've got to go to a UGF, or you've got to go to a distribution center, or you've got to go to a market. I want stuff that I can just stumble on, and it kind of organically. I hate the word, but without me having to be led by the nose to it. I want to be able to log into Star Citizen for a day, and I just want to be able to go from one adventure to the next naturally. Oh, I found this. Oh, it's got coordinates on it. Oh, okay. So I'm going to upload those to my mobiGlas. Okay, so that's over here. Cool. So that's where the base is. So I'm going to go find out the base, and then you find out that there's something else going on, and that or you get a hostage there, and you go to take it back, and then you figure out that that hostage is trying to be killed by someone. I just want that sort of stuff to play. I want that sort of detail. But yeah, 4.0 will be out this year. It will be fine. So Samuel OI, whereas the negative, it's like crazy. So Samuel, rather than rehash it all now with about 10 minutes left of the stream, it's probably worth just when you get a chance, just watching the first part of it. But there's just some information in the PU monthly report that seems to indicate that this won't be in summer as they first said it would be. It's looking a lot more likely that it's going to be CitizenCon and beyond, given a lot of the wording that they're using and the features that they are just now, in their own words, starting, rather than working in development stuff that is required for self-mission. So yeah, cargo missions will be cool to do. I used to work for Red Flog and E, very fun gameplay. Cool. Yes, this is because conflict zones will have size 1 to 3 jump points, and some jump codes can get closed, and your mission drop-off might not be accessible. Yeah, absolutely that. And also, real life happens. Sometimes we just don't want to. We start a mission and we get partway through it and we go, ugh. I'm just really hoping for a lot of the missions, especially when you're on a chain, abandoning the mission doesn't kill the chain. Maybe you can hand it off to other people. So maybe you can get partway through a chain and go, this ship would be great for salvage, but I don't salvage. So why don't I put a load of, why don't I put another beacon out so a salvage crew can come to this? Or why don't I say to people, I've got location of an Idris. If you want to salvage it, it's going to cost you 75,000 credits. Yeah, that'll be quite cool. So yeah, I guess the last thing that I kind of want to do today is I just want to have a look at a little bit closer to my fleet, because we've had a bit of a development in the last day or so that I think is probably worth just talking about. Just a second. I'm just going to move these around. Yeah. So, very quickly. Transition. Okay. Right. First off, we need to talk about these bad boys. Okay, so this is my fleet at the moment, or part of my fleet. Okay, say our Pisces and the Ursa Medevac, and also the Pulse and the MPUV tractor. The MPUV tractor, the Ursa Medevac, and the Firebird were initially for a video. The Firebird was only a loan. MPUV tractor, courtesy of Dell, so thank you very much, Dell. And the Ursa Medevac was an upgrade to a previous LTI token. Going to keep the Medevac and the CR Pisces for the foreseeable future. So there's that. The Pulse is just an LTI token. Not sure what I'm going to do with that. The Sulan, the Vulture, and the Spirit. The Spirit's part of a CCU train. But to what is the question, given this new development? The Sulan was for a video, again, a gift by Dell. But thank you very much. I really should add a Patreon. I know that sort of stuff. Chris, I'll come to that in just a second, buddy. The Vulture was actually my referral Gladius. That's now been updated to that. I'm looking forward to making a guide with that once salvage has calmed down a bit. Now, the next part. Okay, this is the next part of my fleet. The Connie Taurus. I realise I missed that the last time we looked at it. But the Connie Taurus has been the first multi-cruise ship that I bought, and I absolutely love it. It's staying. It's my daily hauler. So if I do any mining or if I do any salvage, it's going to be what moves my cargo around. The Perseus, the combat ship. It's my baby. Yes, I have a name. No, I'm not going to tell you what it is. But the Perseus is going to be fun. And then I've got the Retaliator. Thank you, Edison, for the Retaliator. That's a lot of fun. It's got the modularity now. So it is the Retaliator base, not the Retaliator bomber. But we'll see how that modularity plays out. Looking forward to doing a video on that once we get a little bit more information and a little bit more functionality with it. I did forget the Thundercloud paint. I wasn't doing the unofficial stuff. Right. So, for those that don't know, it might have been a little bit of a milestone for me earlier in the week. The Reclaimer is the ship that the Spirit was going to become. I went out for lots of drinks on Wednesday and got pretty drunk, right? However, whilst I'm out, also thank you, Shadow Girl, for the first round in Brewdog. Really appreciate it. Went out for a meal, got told you need to check your email. Checked my email very quickly and got told that there was a hover quad been bought for me by Can and by Edison, which was lovely, LTI token. Didn't really think about any more about it. And then the following 2 days, I was chatting with Can, and he said, "Did you have a look at that hover quad?" And I was like, "No, because when I was out, because I looked on my phone, I don't have my phone authenticated for my account. It's too much risk. Too likely to use my phone. Don't need people to have access to my RSI account on something I could lose. That's bad. Right? Don't want to play that game." So I was like, "No, I hadn't." Opened it up. And the hover quad was not a hover quad. The hover quad was the start of a CCU chain. I now own a Reclaimer. Courtesy of Can and Edison. Right? With friends like these, who needs friends? So to both of you, I know Edison's not here, he's working tonight, but Can, you are. I've said this profusely over the last couple of days. I will say it again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you ever so much. The Reclaimer is one of the ships that I've been looking at for quite some time. I love the idea of having a salvage crew, a non-combat thing, everyone having their roles. We're all training in to do the tractor beam operator and the drone operator and the salvage arms and all that sort of stuff. I really, really like that idea. I love the ship. I don't know how buggy it is, but I love the ship. Can't wait to give that a go. So that's that. The next part of this, I'm just going to move the Reclaimer over. This is the CCU chain that it was going to be, okay, with all of the steps. And this is what exists at the moment, going through. It stops at the Apollo Medevac. There's two ships in here that I want to really try. One is the Vulcan, and one is the Apollo Medevac. I'm very, very interested in both of those and seeing precisely how they play out and how good they are. than it would have been from the Gemini to the Valkyrie to the Reclaimer. I don't have those CCUs in my account at the moment, but that's where they are. The nice thing is, of course, if I finish that off to the Gemini, what I might end up doing is using one of my CCUs to either the Endeavour or the Crucible. I own CCUs to all of the 3 of these ships. The Polaris is unlikely to get used. I know if Limited is still here, I know he's about to get triggered. But yeah, so there's that. So I've got some options now to where to take that chain. I also have, and I can't remember, why on earth we have this in here somewhere, is this bit. Is a Vulture to Connie Taurus. I think it was potentially the Taurus was going to get changed to something else. But yeah, we've got the Vulture to Connie Taurus, and that might then enable me to go up to the Vulcan if I like it, and keep the Apollo Medevac as well. So yeah, that's the plan. So that's the fleet as it stands. Don't ask me what I'm doing with this lot. Don't know where this is going now, but I've got my cargo, I've got my combat, I've got my moneymaker, I've got the modular ship. The rest of it, don't know where all this is going. We'll find out, I guess. But that's pretty much where I am right now. That's my fleet. And again, to Can, to Edison, thank you both ever so much. Love you lots. Option after the Gemini, a Rastra. Interesting. Very nice. So yeah. That's where we are with the fleet. Maybe one of the Zeus. They seem decent. Yeah, I think my Taurus. I'm quite happy with that in that range. But there's a lot of places to go. One of the other ships I'm really interested in seeing is the Legionnaire. Although that might be a bit too PvP focused. I think you'd do some fun PvE with it as well. But yeah, we can. I'll certainly have a look. But yeah. So that's where we are at the moment. So like I said, I think the best thing I can caution right now is stand by for potential slippage with 4.0. Citizen Con seems a fairly decent bet. Yeah. I think I can't remember which one I got. I think it was the Gemini I put. I can't remember which one I put there. That's just the Starfarer, but it was the Gemini that we used in the CCU chain. So yeah, 4.0, don't be shocked, don't be surprised if it doesn't land when it is. All the things that we're being told right now seems very much to indicate that we are not going to get it as punctually as we were hoping, which is a shame, but there we are. Salvage crew. Legionnaire to me is pretty solid. Still want to see all the E-War stuff though. Yeah, the Sentinel, and I think potentially, looking further on, maybe a larger E-War ship might be quite good fun. A medium, something like that. I'd certainly be interested in that, depending on how that goes. Data running is something else I'd be looking at. Certainly. But yeah. Anyway, that brings us very nicely to the end of the 2-hour stream for this Sunday. Cheers to you all. Thank you very much for joining and not getting too angry at the what I said, but I do think that it stands. I do think that it's a fairly accurate assessment of where CIG, Pyro and 4.0 server meshing are right now. But that's that. It's been lovely talking to you all. As always, I do really enjoy coming in and chatting with you guys. Like I said, I will put, again, the link to the Discord. If you want to pop in, please do. It would be lovely to see you. Other than that, I am going to make my escape. You've been watching Drinkers of Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. See you soon.